girl on fire. I'm not a victim, a girl on fire. I'll stand my ground, girl on fire. I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm every woman. I have taken up arms and I choose to defend all that I hold dear. Independent and strong, you will not keep me down. You can't break me.
Lynette Oxley here for TACSHAC Tactical TV and GOSA Girls on Fire 16 Days for Action for No Violence Against Women and Children. I'm here with Karen Landi. Thank you very much for speaking to us in such a lovely environment here at Kingsmead College. It's fantastic. It's really a really serene, nice place.
Thank you so much.
Can we start with, you've got a horrific story, but let's start with some nicer things. Who is Karen?
So I work here at Kingsmead College. I'm the Director of Service, and service is very important to me. Service is one of the core values here at Kingsmead, and what that means is that we have partners, service partners, from grade 0 all the way through to matric, who we support and engage with, but we do with and not for. So it's really about social cohesion, active citizenship, and volunteering.
And what else are you? Do you think you're a powerful woman?
I don't know. That's a tough question to ask. I'd like to think I'm an empathetic and kind woman. So if you had to ask for the adjectives, they would be empathetic and kind.
So that's what you're doing now. What did you do during when this happened? It happened in 2018, so about 5 years ago?
Yes, so very similar. At that stage, I worked for myself. I owned a company that facilitated youth volunteering. And at the time of the attack, we were actually hosting a camp for a boys' school. And that was at St. John Bosco College. And I was on my way to the camp. I was studying at the same time. So in terms of the career path that I've chosen, I was studying social entrepreneurship at the Gordon Institute of Business Science.
This was in Walkerville.
Correct, yes.
So it's quite, for the viewers that don't know, it's quite a rural area. It still is.
Yes. So mostly plots. And it's an area I know well because I grew up in Walkerville and lived there until just recently. So an area that I know very, very well.
So let's go to the story. What happened to you on the 27th of September 2018? How did the story start?
So I was on my way to the camp.
How late approximately?
So I was pulled over 10 to 7 at night. And being September, it was just getting dark. It was sort of dusk. And having lived in Walkerville, I'd spent a considerable amount of time on the phone in my car, on my Bluetooth, so nothing... Hands-free. And I think something that I said in the story that I wrote, that I've always considered myself to be a law-abiding citizen. And I was driving, I was chatting to my friend Lindsay, who's a friend and also was studying with me. And I remember out of nowhere, because I sort of thought back quite a lot from quite far from where I was up to that point, and I could remember quite clearly cars that I'd passed and cars that had been behind me. So even though I was on the phone, I was still quite aware of what was going on around me. And a car pulled up behind me very, very quickly. So I think they'd come from quite far away. I do believe, having spoken to people, however, that, and I remember I'd stopped at, it used to be a robot and it's now a four-way stop, that a car alongside me, and I remembered having made eye contact. He looked at me for quite a long time, and I think I was spotted. So I do think from there, I was spotted, and I believe that my car was on a shopping list, so to speak.
What car were you driving?
It was a Mercedes.
Okay.
And out of nowhere, this car came up behind me with blue lights. So I thought it was the police, and I thought, well, if it's the police and they wanted me to stop, then I must stop. And I remember saying to Lindsay, the police are pulling me over. I'm just going to pull over. Will you stay on the phone with me? And she said to me, please don't stop. And I think, in retrospect, I would never stop now. I'd make my way. I'd put my hazard lights on to acknowledge. that I saw and respected the police, but that I was making my way to a place that I could deem safe. And I pulled over and I opened my window. It wasn't a lot that I opened my window. I didn't open it all the way down. And a man came up to my window and I said to him, the first thing he said to me was, "Open your boot." And I remember thinking that was a bit odd. So I said, "No, I'm not going to open my boot. Please, can you tell me why you've pulled me over?" And he said, "Because you were driving in the yellow lane." And I said, "I was definitely not driving in the yellow lane. Please, can you tell me who you are? Can I please see some identification? And what police station you are from?" And with that, he leant in and pulled the keys out of my car. And with a Mercedes, when you pull the keys out, all the doors opened. And what had caught my eye in the side mirror was there were two men approaching from the passenger side, and it was then too late.
What happened then?
He then opened the door, the man at the window, and the two other men got into the front passenger seat and the back passenger seat. And I remember saying, "Everything is in the boot, my bag, my laptop. Please just let me get out. You can have my car." Because, nothing is more important than your life.
Absolutely.
So I remember saying, "Just take it. I'm not fighting you. Put up my hands. Take what you want, but let me get out." But they clearly had they had other ideas. The physical assault started almost immediately, with the men hitting me immediately. There was no
discussion.
They just started hitting me, and they pushed me between the two seats. So it's a very small gap. Let me tell you how they fitted me between that gap. I still actually don't know, but they did, and they pushed me then to the back seat.
That's good.
Yeah,
And
it was quite interesting. They pushed me and then took off quite quickly, and then the Golf behind us, I think it was a Golf, it might have been a Polo, it was white with the blue lights, then overtook us and carried on straight. So it was very much planned in that I think they knew what car they wanted that evening, and yet I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I initially thought that they were going to go straight, but they didn't. They went almost immediately left, which was on the way to the camp, so that was where I was going.
But they assaulted you quite badly,
Yes, they did.
and they kept asking. Lindsay was
Yeah.
on the phone
Lindsay
for
was on
about,
the phone.
for about
Yeah.
a minute,
Yeah.
and she heard you screaming.
Yeah,
And
so
they
I
didn't-
think there are many factors that saved my life that night. That was the first one, without a doubt. So what happened was, obviously she heard me screaming and she heard these men's voices, and she screamed out my name, and they realized that that someone knew what was going on, and then what she panicked, as you know, and her son was with her, and he started phoning 10111, and she started trying to phone other friends of ours to get hold of my husband to track me, and that was sort of how her nightmare started. So I think it wasn't only my life that was affected that night. It was my life, it was my family's life, Lindsay's life. She also suffered terrible trauma. The trauma her son faced trying to get hold of 10111.
Did he get hold of him?
No, he didn't.
And that's so scary. I've actually recently had a speech for overseas victimology women's event, and I looked at the statistics about how many times which police stations answers the phone, how long they take to answer the phone, and I always say to people, you're actually on your own. You need to be your own first responder, because
you do, and you need to have aligned yourself. I was very fortunate in that I had Life 360, and so when my friends eventually got hold of my husband, they were able to track me and know exactly where I was. So you have to have those kind of things in place, unfortunately.
So the whole plan about what's going to happen if something like that. So scenario planning. During this time, they will keep asking you about your tractor, and still every time keep assaulting you and keep assaulting you. So that you must, but you stayed quite calm.
So I think I do know that you can do situational planning and what have you, but how you're going to react when you actually are in that situation, I don't think you can ever know, because there's so many factors. Please God, I'm never in that situation again. Would I react the same? I honestly can't tell you that. So I did feel quite disassociated, and I was working out in my head how I was going to get out of the situation. Part of me couldn't believe this was actually happening. You know, I remember the blood pouring down my face, so I remember that very vividly. If you see pictures of my face, it was terrible. I was unrecognizable with the amount of blows that I suffered to my
Almost
face.
hitting you on your face.
Correct. So all of the blows by three men were being delivered to my face. They kept asking about the tracker, but my car didn't require a tracker. It was just not an insurance requirement.
And they didn't want to believe you.
And they didn't believe me. And I think the thing was, and I think I also got quite irritated, they said, what can we do if we find a tracker? They were telling me that they had special equipment to find a tracker. What can we do? So I said, well, you can kill me because there's no tracker. So I don't know what you actually want me to tell you. But they never, ever stopped, even once we got to where they pulled me out of the car with the questions about the tracker. They never stopped with those questions.
In the meantime, another friend found you.
Correct. So I think at that stage I was very disorientated. I think firstly from all the blows to my face and head. But I do think we pulled over and they said, it's Sharon calling. And I thought, well, what I'm going to do is call her the wrong name. And then it will indicate to her. And also she was a very good friend, so I knew it didn't matter how much I faked it, that she would pick up in my voice that something was very badly wrong. The other thing that had unsettled them was me telling them that I had to be at a camp in 5 minutes, and if I wasn't there, people were going to look for me. So there were a few sort of strategic things that I managed to do, and purely just, I would just say, maybe divine intervention, because how I managed to think to do those things, I still really can't tell you logically. So I'd have to say divine intervention. So I told them repeatedly, I've got to be at this camp, I've got to be there in 5 minutes, they're going to come and look for me. So Lindsay had been on the phone, that was the first thing. I kept telling them, got to be there. And the third thing, Sharon wasn't at the camp. But I said, I know you're at the camp, I know you're waiting for me, I will be there in 5 minutes. And then I suppose I'd also been negotiating with them because I knew we were on the road to the camp. And I said to them, just drop me off outside the gate and be on your way. But yeah, they still that wasn't part of what they had planned, obviously.
Why so aggressive, do you think?
I really don't know. You know, quite a few times, and I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, you might have to just bleep me out, but they'd go, fuck you, you white bitch. It was definitely a male-female thing, and it was against me being white. Later on in the attack, they did ask me what colour I was, which was quite strange because they had referred to me as a white bitch. But when we got to where they pulled me out the car, the man did say, "What colour are you?" So that was.
There was no drugs or alcohol or anything. They were just angry.
So I couldn't smell alcohol. They were under 30, so quite young, maybe even younger than that. Ego was a very big thing because they told me that they were the Soweto boys and that they were very, very powerful. And I played into that, and I said, then that's great. And I called them sir. You know, I was very polite, trying to keep my head and my composure, despite the blows. Yeah.
Because probably if you acted more scared,
sure,
the power would have increased. And
yeah.
If you look at it from a psychological point of view, that is going to be the power play. And
sure.
it's if you look at normal GBV, that's the more you give, the more they take. And
it's quite a fine balance, though, between begging and not being disrespectful. Because I think if you go either side, if you're very disrespectful, they'll also show you that they're in charge.
Yeah.
So the perpetrators. So I think trying to sort of keep that balance between being respectful and yet not begging.
You had three people that one was the most aggressive one, you didn't call something, the other one was gold tooth and the other one was tattoos. And that's how you identified them.
So the man who came to the window was the man with the gold tooth. Then there was the man who had me in the back. I also did a lot of negotiation. So initially when they took me, he said, lie down, you know, put your head down. And I didn't want to. I don't know why, I just didn't want to. And I said, no, I'll cover my eyes with my hands. So, you know, I negotiated that. And then I had diamond earrings in that day, and he took the earring out, and then I dropped my hands to take this earring out, and he hit me. So I said, no, I'm taking my earring out, I'm cooperating with you, I'm giving you what you want. So there was quite a lot of negotiation that was taking place. So I identified him as the man. He had a very big tattoo here. The man who was in the front passenger seat, if I even had to see their faces, I don't think I'd be able to recognize them, to be honest with you. He was the one who would just hit me for no reason at all. He'd just turn around and just hit me.
So then the car stopped somewhere?
Yeah, so they took me off a dirt road. They must have known the area well, because you wouldn't, that road, by then it was dark, you wouldn't know that little road was there. So they took me off the road. The tattoo man yanked me out the car, and the two men in the front, they started to search the car. They actually did considerable damage to the car, ripping out most of the interior of the car while they were looking for the tracker, because the car was recovered in less than 24 hours. The tattoo man, who was the man in the back, who once we got out the car, was obviously the main person who assaulted me, initially pushed me towards the road. And at that stage, I wasn't sure if he did have a firearm or not, because I hadn't seen a firearm, but he could well have had a firearm. So as he pushed me towards the road, I thought he was going to shoot me. And I think the paradox is, for some reason, I wasn't afraid to die, but I've also never wanted to live so much. And in that moment, I thought about brave women. And I'm very blessed in that I'm surrounded by incredibly courageous women. And at that moment, I thought about Lee Matthews, because her body was found not far, on the same road, not far from where I was taken. And I thought about Alison Brotta, who, I mean, she fought such a brave battle. The fact that, you know, she had held her intestines in, and I thought very vividly of them. So initially he pushed me up towards the road, and he said, because obviously they weren't getting what they wanted from me, and that was fear or begging, where the tracker was. He said, we are going to rape you, all three of us are going to rape you. And I said to him, no, you're not. You can kill me, but you're not going to rape me. There was only once later on in the attack where he said, I'm going to rape you now. And I said, I'm a married woman, so you're not. And he said to me, you don't have a ring on. And I hadn't. I'd actually taken my rings off, and my rings were in the console in the middle of the car. After he tried to push me towards the road, he then changed his mind and turned me around and pushed me up an embankment. But it's very much a veldt area, and being in September, it was still very much winter veldt, very hard ground. I somehow lost my shoes. I don't know what it is about shoes and attacks and accidents where people lose their shoes, but I'd lost my shoes. And
your favorite shoes, you said?
No, my favorite bra. That was the bra. The bra was the favorite bra.
Okay.
So he pushed me up this embankment, and I remember stumbling because I was barefoot, and it was uneven terrain, and I held onto his arm to try and stop myself from falling, and he hit me. He didn't want me to touch him.
Why do you think that's it? Because that was so interesting.
It was quite interesting. I don't know why he didn't want me to touch. I don't know if it was then too human-like, where I was needing help and support, and he didn't want me to touch him. So that was quite interesting, because I was just trying to stop myself from falling. And we got up the embankment. He pushed me down. And then I think once again a power thing, and because he threatened to rape me, he took my pants and my panties off. And I think that was, I felt incredibly vulnerable. Yeah, so vulnerable, because I thought, well, now I'm only one step away from being raped. I really thought this is it. And he then got very, very angry, and he said, what is your tracker? I regress. When he took my pants off, he said, have you ever given a black man a blowjob? So it wasn't just a man a blowjob, it was a black man a blowjob. And he said, you're going to give me a blowjob. And I said, with a face like this, you honestly expect me to give you a blowjob?
Because your face went
Because my face and my mouth and everything, and there was just blood all over. He then pushed me down, and he asked again about the tracker, and he enunciated his words where is the tracker? And when I said there is no tracker, he got so angry with me that he picked up a rock and smashed my face. So, that obviously caused immense damage.
And you were still conscious the whole time?
I do believe. So after that, he then put his knee on my throat and I couldn't breathe. And I do believe at that point I lost consciousness. I don't,
remember?
No.
Because
I couldn't breathe. I
couldn't
couldn't breathe, yeah. So, I've been assaulted, I'd been smashed with a rock. I then had his knee on my throat.
Were they big people? Or?
He was a very tall man, yes. He was a very tall man. He then, interestingly, things changed. And I do believe that I wasn't alone. So I do believe that my angels were with me. I really, really, really do believe that. Especially when I do think I lost consciousness. And he said to me, what colour are you? And I said, I'm a South African. Because at that stage I didn't identify with colour. And he said to me, and what work do you do? Which is a most peculiar question. And I told him, I do outreach work. I work with people in under-resourced communities. And then things did really change.
Why do you think?
I don't know, maybe he found his humanity, the little bit of it that was there. Maybe he, I don't know, had a moment. And then I heard my car starting. And he just got up and left me, got in the car and left.
Did you sigh?
I think I still didn't quite know what had happened.
Yeah.
And I still didn't consider myself safe. I sort of remember looking around. I didn't look for those shoes. But I did look for my pants and panties. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I'll walk to the road, and then I can either go left or I can go right. So if I go left, I'll get to Bosco. If I go right, I knew where the closest sort of houses were. And because Bosco had such tremendous significance in my life, I'd gone to school there. I'd got married there. My children had been baptized there. I decided to go to Bosco. And initially I did try and wave cars down. So about 2 or 3 cars passed me and I tried to wave them down and they didn't stop. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I would have stopped.
Out of Alice in Wonderland's same story, just one guy in the end stopped.
In the end stopped.
One guy.
But then my big fear was that they were going to come back. And I thought, I don't think that I can take any more of this. I can't take anything else. So every time a car would come, I would stumble down the embankment and do my best to hide. Essentially then people were were on the road looking for me because word had got to the camp and the people at the camp were in their cars looking for me. And I think quite shortly after I'd started walking, my husband and my daughter had arrived on scene. Excuse me, where I had ended up.
And some of your notes and stuff, and they were
correct.
So they must have been frantic.
And I think I was also worried on my walk about my family and how they must be feeling. That concerned me terribly. Because they came down this little road, they then thought that there was a problem with Life 360, that it was taking them the wrong way, but saw my notes and things from my boot that they recognised as mine. They then weren't quite sure what to do because they were shouting for me and calling, and they didn't know if I was dead, if I was in the bushes. Excuse me, do you mind if I just have some water?
Absolutely.
Sorry. So they didn't know, and I'll forever be sad for what they went through. So many people suffered that night. So as I was walking and going down the embankment, I then cut my foot really badly on a broken bottle, but I carried on walking. And what was so interesting is Bosco is almost in a valley, and I got to the cusp of the hill, and that night it was a boys' school. They were doing lip sync battles or whatever, and I could hear them, and I could hear them singing and cheering, and I decided that they were cheering for me, and that I had to just put one foot in front of another until I got there. And I eventually got to Bosco. And up until arriving at the gate, I hadn't cried, I hadn't actually processed anything that had just happened.
You just kept it together.
I just kept it together. And as I got to the gate, the security looked at me, and obviously I looked dreadful because I was covered in blood and dirt and what have you. And I said to him, "May I please use your phone?" And he said to me, "I'm sorry, my phone doesn't have any airtime."
Yeah.
But he was such a kind man. And I
What was
remember...
his name? You found
I
out?
actually cannot remember. I was thinking, what is his name? But it was a very...
Fortune. I think it was Fortune.
I think it was Fortune,
this
yes.
morning.
And I was very fortunate that I had
Yes.
Fortune. And I remember him, he just took my... And it was quite interesting if you look at the juxtaposition. The other man had slapped my hand away, and Fortune took my arm.
Yeah.
And he never said anything. I could just see the shock on his face. And he just took my arm, and he very gently led me. And he didn't have to say anything in that moment. And we started to walk down the road, and I could see a woman was approaching because she was on her cell phone. And she's a woman who I'd had a lot of dealings with. And she didn't recognize me, and I'd seen her the day before. Yeah. And I said to her, "May I please use your phone?" And also the shock, and she said yes. And I phoned my husband, and I thought, "Oh God, I hope he bloody answers it."
Yeah.
Because he never answers his phone.
I know, my husband's just like that.
And he literally answered on the second ring. And I said to him, "It's me. I'm at Bosco. Please will you come and fetch me?" That was it. And as I was going around the corner, the drive sort of goes around, my daughter and my husband arrived. And my daughter jumped out the car. She was in matric, and that's another factor. She was just about to write her matric exams. And she just went, oh my God, and she was crying. And I don't know why it was important, but I kept saying, "I haven't been raped. I promise you I haven't been raped." And I don't know why. That was
important.
Yeah.
Your bodily integrity.
Yeah.
Was still.
And my husband was just furious. I mean, he just kept saying, "Why have they done this to you? Why have they done this to you?" Yeah. And then I got in the back of the car, and my daughter got in the back of the car with me. And I still remember being quite in control because we had a choice of 2 hospitals. And initially I said, "Let's go to this hospital." And then I said, "No, actually we'll go to the Union Hospital. It's no longer open in Alberton. It's now the Alberton Hospital." But at that stage it was a Union Hospital because it is a trauma hospital. And I knew that I needed a trauma specialist.
Were you feeling pain at this stage?
Huge pain, yeah, huge pain. My foot was bleeding, my face was bleeding, blood everywhere. I remember being incredibly thirsty. And my daughter was like scrambling under the seat. You have all of those bottles of water with just this much in.
Exactly.
She said, "Mommy, the water is hot or warm." I said, "I really don't care. I just need the water." And at that stage, my husband was then starting to phone people and just say, "We found her," because a whole lot of people were then looking. And I think that really speaks to a sense of community.
Yeah.
And that you can phone people and people will step up. And we made our way to the hospital. And when we got there, my husband pulled into, and by that stage it was probably about 8:30 at night. He pulled into the emergency parking, and the guard was like, no, you cannot be parking there. And I got out the car, and he was like, "Okay, no, you just park there.
just do it alone." Yeah.
And I walked myself into the hospital, supported by my husband and daughter on either side. And I remember walking in, and there was a woman with a little girl, and she just moved the child out the way, and I thought, geez, I must look terrible if I'm frightening children. And then we got to the reception, and the nurse then said, "Okay, well, there's some paperwork to fill in." And at that point, I was done. And I said,
this is it.
"No, I'm not filling in any paperwork. I am now needing to lie down because it's enough." And her question to me actually was, "Have you been burnt?" So, obviously I think because the blood was caked with dirt as well, so it wasn't a good look. And they then took me to the trauma ward. And, I've had the opportunity to speak to nursing sisters. Lindsay volunteers at the Barra Burns unit, and I was invited to speak to the nurses just to tell the nurses the importance their care had on me that night, and just their compassion and kindness, and
That's one of the things.
Yeah.
So they treated you well.
they were
and was-
unbelievable. The Union Hospital was phenomenal. The nurses, the trauma counsellor, they were furious. They were very angry that this had happened to another woman. So it was a sense of womanhood. They really were brilliant. I remember lying there because I didn't want to be alone, and a nurse walked past, and I said to her, "Please, can you go and call my family?" And she was like, "I'm just a nurse. I just work here." So there were a lot of things that I found quite funny, but I suppose
you have to sometimes.
Yeah.
In trauma, it's sometimes good to just find that little funny moment.
Yes. Yeah.
But you then you were in ICU for two days.
nights.
What happened? What was broken?
So this was the incredible thing, I think, and that's why I say I wasn't alone that night. So I suffered facial trauma, and obviously trauma from the blows to my head, but nothing was broken. So I have, except my nose. So I have had to have 3 surgeries subsequent to that. So my septum was deviated. And who knew that one can develop trauma cataracts? So I developed.
I didn't know.
Yeah, trauma cataracts
What
from
does
the
it mean?
blows.
Okay, so
just as so, I'm just going to have another sip of
No,
water.
go for it.
Cataracts generally you associate with elderly.
yeah.
Trauma cataracts are from blows to the any trauma that you suffer
Around your eyes. And your eyes.
Yeah.
One eye was totally closed.
Yeah, one eye was totally closed. So I had to have lenses done. And from my trip down the embankment, a tumour actually formed on my foot. So I've had to have...
Because it was
surgery
quite a
on my
bad
foot.
cut.
It was quite a bad cut, yes. That had to be stitched up. So I was taken up to ICU. I think the other incredible thing was the people who immediately didn't only come to support me in trauma, but my family too. So
it's a very alone journey with your injuries, but the family sometimes suffer just as much in a different way.
Just as much in a very different way. Very close friends and family were there. My daughter had actually been at her boyfriend's, and when she heard her boyfriend's family came to the ICU with her,
because she didn't want her to drive alone.
No, but I still didn't want my children to drive alone at night. And in ICU, just the kindness of the nurses. Obviously, I was filthy, and their caring and compassionate hands cleaned me from top to toe, really, because I was covered in dirt. And I remember my
You
lips.
must have been a sight.
Oh, I really think I was a sight. My lips were so dry, and all I wanted was lip ice. But by this stage, the family had gone home, and because they were sedating me and what have you, and I said to the nursing sister, please, can you got lip ice or something for me? And the other nurse had cherry flavored Zambuck, and so I was given Zambuck. So just incredible kindness and excellent medical care, really good. I obviously negotiated. Clearly, it's one of my skills. With the trauma surgeon, I had this brilliant trauma surgeon, and I said to him, "Oh, please, can I go home?" Because it was late Thursday, and I really wanted to go home, and he discharged me on the Saturday morning early.
It's better. I feel you heal better at home with family and stuff.
I did.
Why did you start? They gave you 2 pages from the radiology section to start writing your story, and did that help you to put your thoughts into?
It was very cathartic, and it's quite interesting. I don't go back and read my story, but when I was interviewed sort of some weeks later by a detective, there were things I remembered that I have subsequently forgotten. And I think, once again, it's your brain's way of protecting you.
Absolutely.
I wrote my story. It was very cathartic. I needed to do it. And what was quite interesting is the outpouring from absolute complete strangers who reached out to me, thanking me for having written it. And one of the things that was so important to me is, in exactly the same area, a woman also in a Mercedes, and blue light cars pulled up behind her. And because she'd read my story, she didn't stop. And they actually pulled up next to her, so they clearly were up to no good. And she put foot and got to the closest gated community where they're then driven off. And she said, "You saved my life." So if it just helped one person, then I'm
Absolutely. Your chances of actually dying was pretty good.
Oh yeah.
And you survived. So, they might have killed somebody before you, and they might have killed somebody after you.
Yeah.
So what did the police do? Because that's part of the story that I couldn't get in anything.
Yeah. I think I tried to keep the negative out of the story. So I remember waking up in my days in ICU, and there was a man next to my bed, and I was like, "Oh, hello, can I help you?" And he was the detective. So I said, "Oh, okay." He didn't have a notebook, he didn't have a pen. He sort of looked me over and off he went. So that was probably a 3-minute interaction. As I said, no notebook, no pen. My clothes were kept by the hospital, so we had them in terms of DNA, which I don't think we do here. And
there is actually quite a big DNA lab.
Well, I'm impressed.
They were very far behind with stuff, but
they caught up.
But there is a big DNA lab.
So a few weeks later, a man came, another detective, and I actually printed the story. And I said, "You know what? If you want to know anything, it's best to read the story." I said, because there are details that I've forgotten, and he couldn't grasp why I had forgotten some things. So it wasn't helpful, and that was my last interaction with the police. I never ever.
So they probably
still out there attacking people. Yeah,
that is extremely sad.
It's very, very, very concerning.
PTSD. Do you still suffer with it? Is it getting better, or is it?
It depends. So it's quite up and down.
Yeah, that's what people say.
I think there's nothing more important than going for therapy. I went to a psychiatrist almost immediately, and then had different psychologists. And I think the other thing is, it's okay if you go to a psychologist and they aren't for you. Go to another one, but don't give up on psychology. So I think that's very important. And maybe it's not a psychologist that can help you. Maybe it is a life coach, or maybe it is a trauma counselor. So just find the person
and these
that can help you.
They really are. I've met some awesome people,
phenomenal people. And now I haven't been to therapy for about 18 months, and now I'm going to I'm starting TRE. So
what's TRE?
So trauma release. I don't know what the E stands for, but trauma release. And someone's recommended that I go for that. So because it's all actually Julie, the woman who I'd called Julie, her name, the real Julie. Yeah. She's said I must try that. So I'm going to go for that. I don't think I'll ever fully be healed, because there's still triggers. I still really don't like driving at night. If I see a police car, I get quite anxious. Excuse me.
I do understand that.
Yeah, I really, and I've actually forced myself to stop and speak to, good police, because they are really, really wonderful police out there.
But this is the fact that they haven't taken it further, and it's obviously a hot spot.
No, but we know that. We know that from Carte Blanche, having run numerous stories on quite similar, on that stretch of road. So it is, and it's a gang. It's not the 3 men who did it to me. There are many.
There's many, and there was people in the background, and there was somebody that wanted that car. So there's a whole criminal network behind that.
There's a whole network. Yeah.
One of the other questions is then, if you have a message out there for other women during the 16 days of action, I've changed it from activism to action.
I think action is important.
What would your message be for them?
Look for the good. I think, it's that Roy Rogers who always says, look for the helpers, and they are there. Allow people to help you, because sometimes as very strong people, we don't allow people to help us. And don't ever stop. Don't ever stop. Go to a police station, go to a petrol station, go to a well-lit area where you know that there are cameras.
I just actually wanted to go back a step. You said you don't feel like a victim.
No.
And
it was a choice, though.
And it was a choice. The other thing is that you don't hate the country.
No.
The 3 people didn't define what you say, what South Africa is.
No. So, not all men are bad because 3 men attacked me.
Absolutely.
they are bad men. And there are unfortunately many bad men. But those bad men they're on one WhatsApp group, and all the good men, and there are many more good men than there are bad men.
Absolutely. And I do think that you're a victor and not a victim.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you very much for
Thank
talking to
you.
me, and I hope we see each other in the future
I hope so
at
too.
one of our programs.
I hope so too.
Thanks very much.
All the best.
I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. Countless hours on the range, I am responsibly armed. I am your equal. I've empowered myself, I have practiced and trained. Fear won't control me. With my sisters in arms, we will make ourselves heard. We'll stand together. I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire. I've made a choice. I stand proud. I'm a girl